Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining us. Can we start with an introduction from your side?
Yeah. Hi, I'm Nicolo Marchesi. I'm from Italy, from a small city near Pavia, which is a bigger city near Milan. And to sum up what I work on, I'm a professor in software engineering and cloud computing at the University of Pavia, and I'm the product manager on a company named B Sharp, which is developing an open source software for credential and access management for developers, mostly for cloud. And that I think sums up everything I do.
Wow. So you're a professor and you're also working on an open source project.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not just an open source project, because we'd like to take it to ship a product on top of this. But of course, yes, we are mostly working on giving the best value for people, which us is in the first place, because we developed this tool mainly for our internal use, and then we came up with the idea to, hey, but this thing can be useful to so much more many people. So let's try to make it open source and see what happens.
Oh, great. Very few of us really understand the open source world. Like, how does it work? What is the like? Why do people open source software? It's a big question for every people.
It's a really big question. Okay, I'll give you my point of view, because I don't have so much expertise or seniority in the industry to answer, but I'll try to give my 2 cents. And I'm doing this since about 2 years from now, so I think I've learned something on the way. There are basically two ways to manage an open source project. One, which is the most widespread, where there is basically no commercialization, and people just get together to make something useful for them, and you basically work on something that creates a community around it, and ships some value for the people using it. And the other one, which is the path we are trying to take, where you start with an open source project, and then you try to evolve it over time, but with commercialization in mind. So trying to split the people for which the software is most useful for free and open source, because the most value you get is by people using it and discussing it, and trying to make it editable for them, so that they can contribute. And then you absolutely need to separate, mostly I think for companies, so not for single people. I think it's a really bad thing to make the single developer pay. So I think the most useful thing is to have in mind big enterprise or smaller companies, but still companies where they usually need some kind of robustness to the project. They just don't need some people getting together for coding something which can be really useful, but having a support plan, a commercial offering, makes it a more compelling product, because they know there is someone who is working on it. So it's we are basically trying this path, and I think there is a lot of space in this kind of market. So it's a path that I definitely suggest other people to pursue. It's really interesting. It gives a lot of you get a really lot of enthusiasm from other people. You get to know many many people in the industries, and just that it's really amazing. So on top of that, if you can make a living over it, it's nice.
That's great. So, what exactly is this product, and can you share something about it?
Yeah, basically is right now is a desktop app with we have in mind to make a small CLI where you can store all your credential for accessing cloud providers. Just to make an example for other people that knows those things, you can take the access key and secret keys from, for example, AWS, or storing the token, the authorization token from Google, and Leap, basically, which is the name of our project, stores inside the keychain all the data necessary to make you log in inside your cloud, and then from the user interface you can click the session that you want to activate, and at a single time you have only those sessions active in your credentials file, and it doesn't use it forces you to use a temporary credential. So that was a way for us to prevent I mismanaged and committed my access and secret key to my open repository, and in the next days I have 20 Bitcoin miners on my cloud account. And that's not particularly interesting for people. So it's for security, and it's for helping developers to switch account really fast, because for example, we have about 200 accounts from different cloud providers. So it's we developed this with multi-cloud in mind, especially for bigger companies where this is a more widespread scenario, and you don't have to manage credential from the single application from the provider, but you basically just use Leap, and you can access anywhere. That's our idea, and right now it's working pretty well. I think in a few weeks we'll go for a CLI. So for people using mostly the terminal, it will be a nice addition.
Okay, so it's kind of one single door entry for all your cloud accounts.
Yeah.
Okay, but then people might have, like, if I am opening all my cloud credentials to you, so isn't that a risk for me? How do you?
Yeah. In fact, you don't give it to us because they are stored inside the keychain on your machine. So
Okay.
You don't give us anything. We just manage it for you, and that of course is the core of the open source proposition. No, we don't store anything. We don't want to have anything to do with your credential.
Okay, so it is stored on my machine. You just help me manage it.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. So how did you think about this project? You said you have been working on this for 2 years now.
Yeah, kind of. We basically had a lot of refactoring in the meantime, and we structured for making it open source, because in fact this project it's 5 years old. It was one of the first. It came up only on A2WS for A2WS, even before there was AWS Vault. Some 12OS, just other products. We developed this because we needed it inside our business. So in the meantime, we realized that we called open source it, and basically the last year and a half was structuring the project to be made open source. And that's not absolutely easy, because there are a whole lot things to do, like really easily documentation is a core. It's something core that you need to take into account, and a lot of time goes away just to writing, just to trying to write something useful for people approaching the project.
Okay. So like, yeah, as you said, it's a lot more than just writing the code and the modules. Like, what all did it take to come up to this point?
What I do daily.
Yeah, like what kind of effort did it take to get your project to this point where you're now thinking of open sourcing and creating a commercial product out of it?
Okay, the commercialization of the product is a thing that it took about a year from basically me, because I'm as a product manager, I take into account, I needed to do the competitive landscape, so I needed to came up with a visual representation of all the current solution, and try to understand if our project could fit somewhere. So, next to it, I did a competitive analysis with all other projects, both open source and commercialized. So I took into account the everything to make this kind of analysis, and just this took about 3 months, more or
Wow.
less. Next, the most difficult thing was to define what were our target person, so who needed this kind of solution, and what could we offer to them. So we always started with we don't want to make the developer pay, so we focused on what kind of needs have business and other businesses and enterprises. And we had a lot of talk with other people working in the industry to have confirmation about our takeout. So this is another basically daily activity that we are doing it even now. And aside from that, of course, I'm still an engineer, so sometimes I still code. And that's the most fun part of the of the whole thing. Please let me code something.
Okay. So like if somebody wants to, somebody like I have an idea and I want to create a product out of it. What part
Okay,
of my effort is code and what part of my effort is other things?
okay,
50-50 or
definitely the most core part to me is try to understand at the start, if you want to make just an open source project without commercialization in mind, or you want to make a living over it. Because if you have that clear in mind, you can plan the next step. Second thing to do is make a business plan. If you want to make it make someone pay for it, make a business plan, understand which is your target audience, and which people you want to make pay, and next make an investor deck, and along with the business, and plan your roadmap, so you can so you can have a schedule. So define your MVP, your prototype, to make it buyable from someone, and stick to it no matter what. Try to not change direction all the time, because we've done this in the previous years, and it didn't lead to much result. So just try to stick to the plan, or if you want to change your route, carefully plan that, and do it with an objective. Have always a clear objective, a clear goal in mind. That is I think that is the most important thing to do when you try to make a living out of something in general. In open source, it is even more difficult because you are basically giving away your product for free, even the source code. So use it to build a connection with other people, network, other developers. That you can get a lot of feedback like this. So this is another thing really important for this kind of job.
Because a lot of people have an idea and they don't know what to do with that idea. They start a project, they get bored with it, and then they drop it. Very few
Yeah,
people are able
and
to get to a product.
yeah, and that's the reason most people fail. Also, I think don't focus on donations, because donation is not a reliable way to make a living. If you so don't take them into account at start. Just focus on. It can be a nice addition, but if you really want to start a company around your open source project, you can't live off donations. It's absolutely impossible.
Okay.
You can pay more people and drive innovation for your project.
Okay. So, do you have all employees working on it, or you have free contributors as well, community contributors?
Right now we don't have really employees, because we are an internal team inside B Sharp. We are
Okay.
4 people working full time, and we have a few contributors that made some pull requests, and that come up to our Slack channel and discuss with us some new features, new addition that we can implement, and even make suggestion about how to enhance some other things. So that's the most useful thing I think.
Okay. That's interesting.
So we are structuring the code base, and that is the thing we are doing right now. We are trying to make the code base the most accessible as possible for other people, so they can feel to have a way to have a clear way to contribute. So we are trying really hard to make the code easy to read, the documentation really well written. So if someone want to get on and do their own integration, they want to add a cloud provider, they want to add an identity provider, I don't know, they absolutely can do them by themselves, because we are only 4 people, and it's really hard to us to take into account the request from them. Maybe there is something that is already along the roadmap, and we can skip over something to make it before something else. But overall, if it's something completely out of the roadmap, we have to carefully determine if we can insert it. But most of the time, really, we don't have the manpower to do that. I really hope to that this could change in the future, so that more people to have some kind of employees, to have some kind of people that work on this full time. But right now it's really hard.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. So, apart from this, what do you teach in the university?
In university, I teach a course about cloud computing and distributed architectures and software engineering. Basically, we make students do a project in cloud with AWS Educate for a cloud distributed application. We teach them about the patterns, the most widespread patterns and best practice, and we do that alongside an agile approach. So it's a really comprehensive course. We don't do much inside the lessons because there are a ton of things to do. So we have a really brief time to do that, but we try to encourage students to do their own learning on the platform and to implement maybe a serverless application, something with containers, but to have in mind scalability and resiliency for like any distributed architecture.
Okay. That's good. So, how would you advise any newcomers to the industry? How should they start? Because, when I passed out of college, I had very few options available. There's Java or C. There's barely any technology to learn. Everything when I passed out of college, I just had to learn Java and start my job. Today, a fresher
Yeah.
passes out of college, he has huge number of options, and it's really overwhelming. So how should one start in the IT industry?
It's a really complicated question because I think the most useful thing for a student during its university course is to experiment with any kind of area. So when I started the university, basically I skipped some lesson to go and try to implement things around concept that I learned in class. So about I don't know. I did image recognition, machine learning, a bit of IoT, and I tried to understand what was around IT, which is a really big field. If there is some kind of area that I wanted to focus on, and right now I think the cloud is one of the most widespread, most interesting and diverse scenario, because there is basically anything you can do in cloud. But even so, in cloud you can go like a sysadmin approach, so go the DevOps way, or make some code and focus on be a better developer, or you can focus on specific fields like image recognition, like machine learning, blockchain. There are really many. So first of all, for our students, I'd suggest to get a clear view of the landscape. On Reddit, I think you can find almost any information, or just ask a question. And if you don't know how is a particular field, just ask, and someone will respond and give you maybe a better understanding. And then try to do something on that. So try to implement something and know if that's the thing for you, because maybe you just tried DevOps, but it's not your thing, so don't stick to it. There is really no. There are other kind of jobs, other kind of thing you can do, and you just need to experiment a lot. So if you didn't that during university, do that before getting a job. And experimenting with open source and online communities, I think it's another strong suggestion I can make. For example, the Kubernetes community is one of the most active and full of really great experts. So you can just jump on that, make some pull requests, try to make some addition to the code, and you can start to show off to maybe the next employer you have what you have done. And so it's like building a portfolio. Don't if if there's one thing I can suggest not to do is building the classic portfolio of application taken from online courses. That's pretty standard, and it doesn't really. It's good for learning. Don't take me wrong. Don't get me wrong. It's really good for learning, but from an employer perspective, is they are pretty standard. So they don't really give you the vibe around what you like to do and how you do it. If you go to someone and say, I made a pull request to Kubernetes, but didn't get accepted, okay, I can still go check on it and see the quality of your code, see what you try to understand. I see that you have maybe a strong opinion for Kubernetes, so I can fit you inside the company. I think this is the most interesting and fun way to do that, because just building the classic portfolio from courses in the long run, it's really plain, and maybe it's for you it's not so interesting to do. So I'd really suggest this kind of approach.
Okay, that's nice. So experimenting and doing something different from just the traditional, or rather not traditional, but instead of just following the textbook examples, do something innovative. Is that what you mean?
To make,
Huh?
Yeah, definitely.
That's nice.
Try to experiment as much as you can, because otherwise you really can get a feeling about a field of expertise. So experiment and iterate over it a lot of times, and maybe in the meantime you'll find what you really want to do.
Okay. This experimenting reminds me of another question. Like, how many products did you experiment before you actually landed on this product that you have brought it to this level? How many did not work?
Okay, we had a product. It wasn't really a product. It was again an internal project, but we missed the point around the process to ship this kind of project. It was a disaster recovery and backup solution for cloud. The funny thing is that my thesis from when I graduated was about consistent backup on that solution. So I basically developed an agent for virtual machines that freezed the file system and flashed the databases writes to disk before making the snapshot on AWS, and we go from that to make to make a product. So from an internal solution, we try to build a real product, but it was a closed one, and we didn't. We weren't expert. I was just graduated, so I absolutely wasn't an expert, and nobody in our company was able to ship and develop a product. But we tried for many years, and we failed really badly. So after that experience, we learned how to manage things. So at least I had 2 or 3 failures around this kind of methodologies until we got it. So failing and experimenting is good, because it makes you learn.
So you should not accept defeat and just continue to experiment.
Yeah. Right now, I can only say that try to see more what other people's do, because it will save you a lot of time. We didn't. Basically I did. At that time I didn't even know that there was a job position like a product manager. So I absolutely had no idea that it could go a process around building a product. It was really naive, but at first, out of the university, I absolutely had no idea. So the time and learning from other people that do that kind of thing is invaluable. You really can save a lot of time.
Okay, great. That is really nice. I'm sure a lot of students will benefit from your experience. Thank
I'm
you very
really
much.
happy to help.